Hello, everyone, and welcome to Module 2 of our ELD Standards Framework Coffee Chats. We are recording, and today we are excited. We are moving everyone over to panelists so that you'll have the opportunity to unmute yourself and also show your video so we can see your face. If we blow up the internet, we'll have to turn off our videos. But I am Ivana Manthor Anderson, one of the ESL Title III consultants here at DPI. A bunch of our other staff is online with us as well. If they want to wave and say hi, I'll pause for a second. Any takers?
This is Atli, just excited to be here today and continue learning with Lani and this group.
Awesome. And Dr. Stacy Daniel is with us today, our section chief.
Excited to be here, excited to learn with everybody.
Great. So at this point, I will turn it over to Lani Simpson, who is our materials developer and presenter for today for this whole series. And Lani, we just appreciate you so much, all the work you've done and your willingness to help us really get started on introducing the 2020 ELD standards here in North Carolina. I'll turn it over to you, Lani.
Thank you, Ivana. Welcome, everyone. I'm glad to be here with you today. And I have to admit that my desire to present and develop these coffee chats was part of a conversation that we had within our own district, and my lead teacher and I laughed because we can never seem to get together at the same time to discuss the modules, which part of the way that the modules are designed is for you to conclude the module by having a conversation with a colleague. And so thus was born the idea of the coffee chats. And so I hope you have a nice, lovely cup of coffee with you. I've got my perennial unsweetened tea, so I am ready to go. And I also have to admit that part of my motivation was selfish because I knew I needed to learn this material, and I thought, well, this would certainly make me learn it. So here we are. I hope you had time to go into the Canvas course and watch and listen to Module 2, Integrate Student Assets into Content Learning. If you did not, that's okay. You can catch up on that, and we will interact and chat about it this afternoon. What we are going to do today is focus on 2 of the 4 big ideas. And last time we introduced the 4 big ideas that the 2020 WIDA standards are grounded in. And we also are calling these the North Carolina English Language Development Standards because we as a state have adopted the WIDA standards. So it's really kind of interchangeable, but we are calling these North Carolina ELD standards as we are making these our own and adopting WIDA standards. 2 of the big ideas we'll focus on today is equity of access and collaboration in the classroom. So what I want you to be thinking about is, as we go through our module today, how can we leverage student assets to bring about equity of access in our own classrooms to create interaction and collaboration? Okay, next slide, please. And Ivana, are you going to unpack the WebEx?
I can, but Susan's online. I don't know if she's a master at it. I don't know if she got her voice working or not.
It's okay, I can jump in. So if you're new to WebEx, this is just a screenshot of what should be available to you in terms of the menu. So if you hover over your screen, you should be able to unmute yourself. You should be able to show video if you'd like, and also access the chat through those icons that you see there. But just keep in mind, if you're not speaking, if you would make sure that you are muted so as not to create any feedback or interrupt the presenter.
Thank you, Stacy. Okay, so what we want to start off with is the importance of Standard 1. So for those of you who are newbies, the Standard 1, which is unchanged, is English learners communicate for social and instructional purposes within the school setting. And if you watched Module 2, we saw a powerful example in our module in Mrs. Espinosa's second grade class, where they were about to hold a collaborative academic conversation regarding the memoir that they had read of Mrs. Espinosa's own immigration story as a child. And so as we listened to the video, the class reviewed their what they call non-negotiables in classroom conversations. So they covered procedures for partner sharing. They covered taking turns. They covered maintaining eye contact, listening with empathy. And it was very impressive in this classroom video that she asked students to turn to their neighbor and tell each other what empathy was. So second graders are really grasping not only the concept of empathy, but they had a lot of automaticity in recalling the classroom procedures that had been put in place for collaborative academic conversations. Listening with respect was yet another one, and taking turns to share. So the language of the classroom focused on the objective also, which she shared was, I can share my thinking about a topic and give details and evidence. I can also read and make predictions. Ms. Espinosa also covered hand motions for academic conversations. If you recall, and this is very reminiscent of Stanford's Understanding Language Initiative, building on each other's ideas, clarifying your idea, elaborating your idea, just to name a few of those hand motions, providing evidence. So these were really great strategies for setting that stage for a collaborative academic conversation where the language, social and instructional language, Standard 1, was very important to set that context for student learning. So here's what I'd like for you to reflect for a moment on. How have you set up classroom procedures for academic conversations? And I want you to reflect on that for about 20, 30 seconds. And then if you would, raise your hand, and then we'll call on you to unmute and share. So again, how have you set up classroom procedures for academic conversations? And I'm not seeing anyone raise their hand.
Hi, I'm Martha Banderas.
Hi, Martha.
How are you?
I see you. We're so glad you were willing to share and unmute and show your video. So if you'd share with us how you set up procedures for academic conversations, that would be lovely.
Yes, what I have done and have seen the teachers doing that it's a best practice is to have academic vocabulary given to the students ahead of time and also sentence frames. And that will help them to elaborate and understand what is the meaning of the words that they need for the content area that they are working on.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So important to provide those scaffolds for academic conversations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would somebody else be unwilling to unmute and share how you set up classroom procedures for academic conversations?
Can you hear me, Lenny?
Yes.
Okay, good. Last time you weren't able to, so I'm glad it's working this time. So one thing I like to do, and I come from a secondary ESL background, so my students are older, but I still really like Project Zero's visible thinking routines. And so I tend to use routines like Connect, Extend to Challenge on a regular basis, or See, Think, Wonder. Ask the next question, which, what makes you say that? So there are certain routines that influence my teaching, and my students get used to these kinds of questions I'm going to ask, and it asks them to be very aware of their own thinking and their own reasoning in those conversations. So in addition to frames and visuals and vocabulary scaffolding, I have some routines for questioning as well.
And Tamara, can you put the name of that framework in the chat box for us?
Mm-hmm. And I'll add a link as well.
Oh, lovely.
I'll get it.
Okay, perfect. Anybody else? Okay. Can we advance the slides, please? There we go. Okay. So in thinking about standard 1, I read the statement on the slide on page 24 of the WIDA Standards notebook. ELD Standard 1 encompasses the experiential, linguistic, and cultural backgrounds and identities of multilingual learners. And I really had to think about that for a minute and understand what really did that mean. And I realized if we think about language as situated in the socio-cultural context, then social and instructional language is embedded in students' identities, experiences, assets, and cultures. So let's reflect on that for a moment. So we will take students from where they are and with their current assets and gifts and leverage those gifts to grow the student as an academic. WIDA calls it bridging from the socio-emotional to the academic by leveraging students' assets. So let's take a look at some teachers in Module 2 and how they learned about their students' assets. Next slide. In Module 2, Mr. Romero, 4th grade teacher, and Ms. Morrison, the high school science teacher, both had great ideas for accessing and leveraging student assets. Mr. Romero had a great idea for saying good morning in different class languages that were represented in his classroom at their morning meeting. While it sounds simple, it is an excellent strategy for creating a warm classroom and inviting environment for all languages and validating those languages. And at the end of the day, their ideas demonstrate the importance of developing relationships with their students. Miss Morrison, you can see, she created a Google Forms survey, and she worked obviously with older students, and she surveyed their interests, their dreams, their hobbies, and their responsibilities at home, which is huge for us to get to know our students. They also created classroom posters with their own home countries and languages. So both leverage some really great ideas to get to know their students. So let's take a look, and I'm going to put this in the chat box. A link to the student portrait right here. And Stacy, if you can click on that link to the student portrait. And I'm not sure, can we make that bigger and bigger and bigger? And nice. Okay, very good. So I want you to take a couple minutes and look at this student portrait of Uriel. And I want you to notice, what are his assets? What resonates with you? What do you learn about Uriel that you might not otherwise know had you not gathered this information for a student portrait? So what I would like for you to do is, once you've had a little bit of time to peruse Oriel's student portrait, is to type in the chat box. What do you notice about Oriel? What have you learned that you would not otherwise know about the gifts and assets he brings to school with him? And if you would type that in the chat box.
Lanny, it looks like some people are saying, Chelsea said he enjoys learning that involves movement and creating stories on his own.
Very nice.
Sandy mentioned he is artistic and enjoys hands-on activities, especially in science. Susan has said he's enthusiastic about science. He enjoys those hands-on activities and even tries experiments at home, that he feels comfortable sharing, and that he's formed some close relationships.
Nice. Tyson says he enjoys writing original stories, which would be great to leverage, because if you notice, he has strong oral language skills, and it is suggested that we use his strength in oral skills to strengthen his domains in reading and writing. So Oriel would be a great candidate for the language experience approach, where if the class would have an experience together, and it might be a field trip. It might be as simple as growing seeds in pots on the classroom windowsill. And they will then come together with the teacher and dictate a narrative about their experience with growing plants from seeds. So those oral skills will be utilized to develop students' writing, and then you can do repeated readings of that shared writing, or students may extend the shared writing activity of the class, and they may choose to write with a partner or not, depending on their strengths. But language experience approach would be a great strategy to use with EL to leverage that gift in and that strength in oral language. Dolores says he's strong in math, which is excellent to know. He might enjoy writing math story problems. I like how you connected those two skills. Awesome. Okay. Okay. And we will go to the next slide, please. Okay. So I want you to stop and think about how you leverage student assets in building an inclusive classroom culture. And the 4 categories of assets that WIDA has shared with us are linguistic, experiential, cultural, and social and emotional assets. And we're going to do shortly another grow and glow activity where we will think about in which of these areas in leveraging student assets do I need to grow, or something that I've done a really good job with leveraging student assets. So we're going to move to the next slide. And this will be where we annotate on the slide. So if you notice on the left-hand side, okay, I'm not seeing the, there we go. Thank you. So Stacy has enabled annotating. I would suggest using the text tool, second one down from the top on the left, so that you can type onto the screen. And if you would choose one of the 4 categories and talk about how you do a good job in leveraging those assets or an area that you need to grow in. So you're going to click on that T and then you can type. So for example, for linguistic assets, I might type purchase novels in L1. So I supply novels in first language for those students who are literate in their native language. That would be something that I might enter as a glow. And I'm going to make room for y'all. I am having a very hard time seeing this.
It looks like someone wrote under linguistic, finding cognates.
Okay.
Under experiential, we have a community quilt. You should talk to me if you want to learn more about blank, because I have experience with blank. We also have, let's see, provide different cultural books in the cultural library under cultural. Social and emotional, we have pair more proficient L's with, I'm not sure, it looks like they're still writing. Under cultural, we have utilizing stories with characters.
I provide students with opportunities to celebrate and share their culture. Field trips based on student experiences. Absolutely. Wonderful way to do the language experience approach with your class and grow literacy skills. Okay. Giving wait time. Oh, that is a wonderful idea to put under linguistic assets. Nice, to allow for that processing. Can't quite, let's see. Metalinguistic connections, excellent. Cognates are a great way to leverage those student linguistic assets. Shared reading and writing under experiential, absolutely. Ooh, I do weekly emotional check-in activities. Nice. And whoever typed that, would you be willing to unmute and share?
Sorry. I do, or I did when I was in the classroom, Monday moods, we call them M&Ms. And so they type in the chat in the Jamboard, just one word that describes how they feel. And then they categorize it by who have similar feelings. And then we talk about it, the whys. And it's usually on a Monday, so it's related to the weekend or anything that may be going on at home.
Nice. Thank you. M&Ms. I like that. Okay. And I'm having a hard time reading. I've zoomed in about as far as I can go. Let me try. There we go. Visible thinking routines based on cell. Okay. And I think that's what Tamara was sharing with us on the visible thinking routines. Excellent. Let's see if we see anything else. Your reading community quilt. Bilingual content area glossaries. Absolutely. Books representing students. Text as mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. Rudine Sims Bishop. Absolutely beautiful. Students need to see themselves in text. Gaining knowledge on students' cultural norms and respecting them within the student community. Excellent. All excellent strategies and ideas. Okay. So, if we can go to the next slide, please. Okay. I'm going to zoom out here so I can see it a little better. There we go. Okay. So, now that we've had time to reflect on how we leverage student assets to create a more inclusive classroom culture, and we leverage linguistic assets, cultural assets, experiential, social, and emotional, I want us now to think about how we would integrate student assets into our unit planning. So, let's dig a little deeper. And what we're going to do is I have included a link here. And this is a handout that is in our WIDA 2020 standards. And let's see if we can get the link in the chat. Let me get it. I'm going to copy this link and get it into the chat.
I just put it in.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. And so what I would like for you to do is to take about 3 minutes to explore this resource. And this resource gives you really great guiding questions for uncovering and discovering student assets in the 4 categories. And so what I would like for you to do is to take about 3 minutes and skim this document and select 1 or 2 guiding questions that you can ask students or share an aha with us about how you could leverage student assets. This was really helpful to me in applying it to unit planning. So let's take about 3 minutes and go to the handout and be prepared to unmute and share an aha or a great guiding question. Are we good? Does anybody need more time? If you do, you can type yes into the chat box. Okay, sure, Susan. Okay. Would someone like to unmute and share an aha or a guiding question that you felt was really helpful in your unit planning in order to leverage student assets? So we really want to hone in on leveraging student assets for unit planning. What guiding question jumped out at you that you want to use with your students?
This is Sandy. Oh,
Here,
oh,
bring mine down.
it's okay. I'll just use your speaker. I was looking at module on page 2, where during the lesson, how might I leverage student multilingualism, linguistic asset to encourage translanguaging, and that just gives students let them showcase their identity, their self-worth, and who they are, and to share that with the rest of the students in the classroom. And I also thought another powerful one was intentional planning of engaging students. Let's see. I wish I should highlight this one. In collaboration with similar background knowledge, if I know that they have similar backgrounds together, I could strategically group them together so that they can help each other on a lesson. So I think those were my aha moments.
Wonderful. And if you haven't, let me get my volume back. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay. And I had pulled my volume down really low so Sandy could share. And so if there is someone that isn't familiar with translanguaging, that is simply using your entire linguistic repertoire to access the content. So you might have a partner that you are speaking with in your native language, but when you are ready to present to the class, you're going to present in English. So you're utilizing all of your linguistic repertoire in order to access the lesson. So wonderful example, Sandy, translanguaging, very powerful, a classroom approach, if you will, for honoring students' linguistic assets. Anybody else have a guiding question that they thought they would really like to use in their unit planning?
May I add?
Yes, please.
I like in module 2, as far as cultural assets, what customs, traditions, and ways of learning are valued by the family or community, and what customs and traditions is, remains in this communities around the holidays, especially Thanksgiving and Christmas. I like for them to get together and do posters of what is their, how do they celebrate Christmas in their culture, and everything from food, the food that they eat, celebrations, dances, and this gives them an opportunity to download pictures and uh, paste pictures on poster boards, and also write, gives them an opportunity to write about the different experiences in their cultures. Because even though I have noticed that some students may be from the same country, they're from different areas and they have different cultures. They have different customs. They have different traditions and different foods, and they love to share about that. And especially if you give them extended time where they can go home. Of course, Mama is always willing to interject, especially when it comes to foods and things of that nature and traditions, and it gives them an opportunity to discuss it with their family at home, and able to for parents to become involved and interject in the students' assignments, and then they're able to present it to the rest of the class, and they're able to share with pride about their culture and their traditions. And believe it or not, like I said, even though you would think that they came from the same country, they are all different in their own way. And it's fascinating and it's wonderful to see them discuss and share things about their homeland and their origins and their traditions. And it's a wonderful thing. And that the holidays are coming up, I'm looking forward to doing that again.
Very nice, Ramon. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move to the next slide, please. I'd like to share with you. There we go. I'd like to share with you, after I reviewed that handout and looked at the guiding questions that I could ask my students in order to leverage student assets in my unit planning, I started thinking, well, what if I were getting ready to teach a unit on Romeo and Juliet?
Looks like we might have momentarily lost Lanny.
Experiential. Tell me about a time you knew someone who was dating someone and their parents didn't approve. And then, yeah.
Lanny, you blinked out for a minute or so. Can you back up just a little bit? Probably 45 seconds, maybe you were gone.
Okay. So, okay. So we'll start over with integrating student assets into unit planning. This is just simply an example of how I took the handout with the guiding questions that would help me to leverage student assets into unit planning. And so I thought, well, okay, if I'm teaching Romeo and Juliet, ninth grade English, what guiding questions might I ask my students for fruitful academic conversations that would leverage their assets? So it might be as simple as, what movie, book, or novella does Romeo and Juliet remind you of? Cultural assets. Does your culture allow dating between different groups? Experiential. Tell me about a time you knew someone who was dating someone and their parents didn't approve. Social and emotional. How do you persevere? And I added, keep going in spite of any bad circumstances. Can be bad luck or star-crossed lovers. So if I were still in the classroom, I would have this handout right by my plan book, because it really fueled my thinking in how I would apply those questions into a unit so that I could leverage student assets. So just an example for you. Okay, next slide. So now it will be your turn. I want you to think about one of your favorite units and how you might incorporate linguistic assets, cultural assets, experiential, social, and emotional assets. And I want you to get a scratch piece of paper or a Post-it note and write those notes down, or you can think of it in
It looks like we've lost Lanny again. So if you're able to, by looking at the slide and where she had started going with the conversation, pulling out a Post-it note or scrap paper, as she said, and referring back to these questions.
in my unit by.
Right, we lost you again, Lanny, about 15, 20 seconds.
Oh, wow. I'm so sorry. Okay.
I was faking it. If you go, you had just said, please pull out your Post-it note and.
Okay. And you may use your sentence frames. My unit is, I can incorporate blank assets in my unit by. So think about it. Use those guiding questions. I put the link in the chat box again that WIDA has provided us for thinking about how to leverage student assets in the 4 categories of linguistic, cultural, experiential, and social emotional. I want you to reflect on maybe your favorite unit and how you could do that. Jot some notes down, and we will take maybe about 2 to 3 minutes to do that. So let's apply that learning to our own unit. And if you prefer to type in the chat box, you certainly can. We'll also have time to unmute and share. Do you need more time? If you do, type yes in the chat box. Okay, we've got some responses. Tyson is sharing, currently I'm doing a unit with third grade about traditions and culture. It's so easy to incorporate cultural assets into a unit like this. Today, a newer student who still remembers Guatemala was comparing pictures from the story set in Africa to Guatemala. Nice, Tyson. Would someone like to unmute and share?
Hey, Lanny, I'll share real quick because I think it's probably inappropriate just to leave that I teach a poo unit out there without explaining a little bit more about my poo unit. So I'll just say I include texts from David Sedaris, Howard Nemerov, and John Ciardi. And one common feature is that they do all have to do with some bit of poo. Sometimes I incorporate as well a nonfiction piece that has to do with using plastics to pick up after our pets and things like that. But it really is about figurative language. It's about poetic features and things like that. But the topics have to do with either being embarrassed or having a pet or maybe the neighbor. And so all of those would be what I would try to pull out to plan with these assets in mind. So asking students, I think, if you've ever had a pet, if you've ever been embarrassed, if you've ever had an argument with somebody close, I mean, all of that right away would be a way to tap into experiences they've already had before we read a poem. And poetry can be complicated for any learner.
Absolutely. That is perfect. And I like how you are accessing everyday experiences that every child has. So it's not the classic, tell me what you did, where you went this summer. And oftentimes that is nowhere. So kudos. I like that. Very nice.
I will say this, the David Sedaris piece, in case anybody's interested, it's called Big Boy. And it is like something that most of us, at least most of us Americans, would have experienced, because it's just about a turd that won't flush and how embarrassed he is. And it's so great because it normalizes this experience that we would all keep quiet because it's such a taboo topic. So I think it opens up quite a lot.
Nice. Okay, we've got thank you, Tamara. We've got a weather unit. Dolores is sharing leveraging linguistic assets through cognates with temperature, temperatura, cultural. Does it snow in your country? Does your country have 4 seasons? Experiential. Have you ever experienced a storm? Social and emotional. How did you feel the first time you saw snow? Wonderful connection to the various types of assets. Excellent. I love it. Okay. Well, I'm sure that you, this is getting your thinking going for how you can develop academic interaction in your classroom, leveraging those 4 categories of assets into your unit planning. Okay, here we got another one. Rachel, ELA unit compare and contrast. Use stories that represent the student's background. Have them compare the story to their own lives. But me Poppy has a motorcycle. Excellent. I love it. Thank you for the ideas. Okay, can we move to the next slide, please? And in thinking about leveraging student assets and developing equitable systems, we've refined and thought about what we do in our own classroom to create an inclusive environment. We've then looked at how we can leverage assets in unit planning. And so now I want us to cast a broader lens and think about what we do in our school and within our districts to leverage student assets. I asked you last time as homework to take a look at your school or district mission statement. And what I want you to do is, if you have your mission statement, I want you to think about it and reflect on how it speaks to equity of opportunity and access. And if you did not have time to look at your mission statement for your school, we'll take about 2 minutes so you can go and look up your mission statement. And if you will move to the next slide, I will show you an example of how I took, and you'll need to click one more time to bring in the text boxes. This is Burke County's mission statement, and you'll see how I added verbiage in order to increase equity of access and student assets. So all I did was simply add the phrases to educate diverse learners from all subgroups, nurture their potentials, and build on their assets to empower them to be competitive, successful, and productive citizens. So if you will take a look at your school mission statement and reflect for a moment on how you might build in equitable access and student assets into yours. And if you'll take just a moment to think about that, and we'll go to the next slide. Okay. And so what I want you to do is, once you've looked at your school mission statement and you've thought about what you might add to the statement, I'd like for you to type that phrase into the chat box. Don't hit enter. We'll wait and we'll give everyone a time to type, and then we'll all hit enter at once, and we'll have a waterfall chat of ideas to improve equity and access and assets in our mission statements. Do you need more time? And you might just think about, if you can't find your mission statement, you might just think about what kind of phraseology would you add? What clause, what phrase might you add to a mission statement to make it more equitable and more asset oriented? And if you'll type that in the chat box. And let's hit enter. All means all. I like that. Lenore County Public Schools, in partnership with families and the community, educates all students to be successful in an ever-changing world. Nice. Dare County is committed to ensuring that all our students access the skills and curriculum while building on their assets that will allow them to live a choice-driven life. We seek to inspire our students to fall in love with the learning process, to become lifelong learners. Lovely. Okay. And if we can go to the next slide. And as I shared with Ivana before we started today, we are still really just setting the stage for really digging deeply. And next time we will begin to really dig deeply into the standards, but we are building that background knowledge. Okay. Oh, and Chelsea shared to provide a safe and culturally inclusive environment where students can become critical thinkers and lifelong learners with self-confidence and the ability to work cooperatively toward a productive life. She added culturally inclusive. Great job, Chelsea. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to watch Module 3. I want you to pull a unit from your plan book that you will use when we meet together next time. And I thank you for your attendance today. And we are using WebEx events, which does not allow breakout rooms. So we are having to really use the chat feature and unmuting and sharing and annotating as ways for us to interact. And I appreciate your patience on that. Ivana?
We appreciate you, Lanny, being here to do this. This is exciting for us because this is our first professional learning tied to the standards as we are in our installation phase. So we're not even in implementation yet. So we really appreciate you guys. We know some of you out there have been working with the 2020 standards since the day they came out. And we really appreciate you giving your feedback on what you're doing already in your districts. And we know some of you were going, the who, what, huh? And you're here just to get a feeling for what this is all about. So if you know that we are working in the installation phase to create a variety of supports and documents for all of you in the field. And this is one of our pieces of the puzzle. So thank you for joining us for this piece of the puzzle. And if you do have questions about how do I get to that module, we do have a place on the website where we have loaded the instructions for how to get there. And also, as we send out the announcements, reminding people, yes, there will be the link to the recording, the PowerPoint slides, and if somebody has that link handy and wants to pop it in, otherwise, we will send a follow-up email to let you guys know exactly how to access all that. I haven't been a good multitasker trying to find that link. So great questions. And thank you all so much. Again, this is recorded. It will be loaded. And certificates were one of the questions that came up last time. And I have to admit, I do not remember the answer to that. Stacy, are you still here?
Thank you so much.
And as long as you registered and WebEx has kind of logged you as staying for the majority of the session, then we will send those registration lists to our amazing administrative specialist, Teresa Parker, and she can award your certificates of completion within the next few weeks.
Great, thank you. So we will not even start on that until all of the pieces are done, or are we doing it per broadcast?
We can do it per broadcast. I think that'll also make it a lot easier for Teresa.
Okay. You got a great compliment, Lanny. Thanks for holding my attention even at the end of a long taxing day.
Oh, how nice. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Thank you so much.